on today's political developments, let's bring in political analyst Drew Fagan with the Munk School of Global Affairs and Public Affairs firm McMillan Vantage. Drew, let's start with Carney. He's promising to hit the ground running with new policies to transform the economy, while also saying no deal with the NDP to pass legislation. How do you see him working with other parties to get his policies passed?
Well, the first step is there's been a lot of rumors that the Liberal government, they're just 3 or 4 seats away from a majority. Might they try to carve a few NDP, Bloc, Conservative MPs into the Liberal camp to solidify a majority? Regardless of that, he's set out his priorities. I mean, he wants to build the domestic economy. He wants to build East-West ties, but it's important that we make choices with regard to that and spend that money well in the face of the crisis with the United States. He's focused on housing construction, so he hasn't forgotten the fact that before the crisis with the United States, the issue driving Canadian politics was cost of living, particularly housing costs. So we're going to have an economic update soon. There's going to be a tax cut. There's going to be more money for housing, driving that forward. Those are the kind of steps he's expected to take on the domestic economy.
Is avoiding a deal with the NDP smart politically? You know, it kind of hung around the neck of Justin Trudeau.
Yeah, so they were different circumstances. I don't think Canadians are, especially with the Liberals being right on the cusp of a majority and a serious, almost existential negotiation to come with the United States, Canadians aren't in for games playing. And the Prime Minister talks in that way, in that sense too. For example, what he said with regard to the by-election for the Conservative leader: won't delay, no political games, all that kind of stuff. It would be suicidal for one of the parties to try to bring down the government quickly. I suspect that, depending on the negotiations with the United States, this government could be around for a while.
Well, let's ask about that next. I want to get your thoughts on this meeting with Trump at the White House. Can Carney get a deal to create this new economic security arrangement that he's been talking about?
Well, he's trying to balance, some different factors. One, the feeling Canadians have of being betrayed by Trump and/or the United States more broadly. Certainly, the first step should be to try to get out of the tariff situation. There's really no reason for these tariffs. These are the fentanyl-related tariffs, after all. And, it's become pretty clear that the amount of fentanyl that goes into the United States is minimal. I know it's not just that. It's other factors as well. But, that was the precept by which this action was taken. So he'll go down there, they'll start the negotiation, or at least set the parameters for the negotiation. It's smart, I think, to include defense issues. Typically in bilateral relations, we talked about trade and economic ties exclusively, and defense, somewhere else in the discussion, in part because trade has become trilateral with Mexico. Defense is very much bilateral. The Trump administration really cares about us increasing our defense spending. We are planning to do that. We can highlight that and hopefully get some leverage in terms of the economic relationship. The question as well is how far we want to go in moving towards something like a reconstitution of what we had before, if the Trump administration was willing to do that. Because again, Canadians feel betrayed, and just the rhetoric the Prime Minister said this afternoon about not going back. I suspect at the end we're going to play it with different ways. We're going to try to talk about trade diversification with Asia, with Europe. Notice, for example, that the King is coming for the opening of Parliament. Fundamental, again, to sort of play our old allies at a time when we're negotiating again with our new ally, or a country that maybe in some people's mind used to be our ally, the United States.
All right, that's political analyst Drew Fagan. Drew, thanks so much for your time this evening.
Thanks, Matt.